Our goal here today is to discuss a package that's taking a little bit of a different approach to the issue of undue, even dangerous foreign influence in our state. We are somewhat compressed on time here, so I'm going to try to be brief. Everybody's going to have to be brief. We will have some time for Q&A, but you may have to do additional follow-up with the members of the on the package afterward. But I'm sure that all of us will be available if we can be. So the first thing I want to note about this package is that although the Chinese Communist Party, the government that it controls, and the entities that are subject to the government and therefore the party's control have been the most prominent, this package does address threats from other foreign governments which have proven themselves to be adversarial to the United States. Those governments include North Korea, Iran, Syria, Russia, Venezuela, and Cuba. As the economy has become more global, so has the reach of hostile foreign entities. This package is attempting to address that risk globally and spans from East Asia to Europe to the Middle East to the Americas. Another point I want to make here is that although there have been other valuable pieces of legislation introduced which deal with some of the issues that this package is aimed at, this package is designed to be more comprehensive than previous legislation has been. From my bill prohibiting dangerous technology from being used by the government, not just TikTok, but technology like the drones that are currently used by multiple Michigan police departments that are manufactured and have technology produced in China. Bills addressing sensitive land purchases, the subsidization of projects involving hostile powers, and the direct dissemination of anti-American ideology in our schools and universities. This package and this group of legislators are attempting to both demonstrate and combat the breadth of the threats that the regimes named in these bills pose. From here, I want to introduce Ambassadors Sella and Hoekstra. I'm sure that they're known to many in this room, but as a reminder, former Congressman and Ambassador to the Netherlands, Piet Hoekstra, was the chair of the House Intelligence Committee during his time in Washington, and former Ambassador Joseph Sella recently served as an ambassador to Fiji and other countries located in PACOM, who live life every day in the shadow of the CCP's attempt to exert influence beyond its borders. And both of these gentlemen have served as ambassadors in the last half decade or so and directly had to deal with interference in the countries that they were working in and observant interference with the operations of the United States posed or driven by the Communist Party. So with that, I'll turn it over to the ambassadors.
Great. Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm Piet Hoekstra. I just want to applaud the state legislators for the initiative that they're taking. They're following in the footsteps of what we faced in Washington. You know, I've been on the front lines. I was on the Intelligence Committee from 2001 to 2011, and I was the lead Republican on the committee from 2004 to 2011. One of the things that we spent a tremendous amount of time on was China, although it was a different time. In 2000, Congress had voted to approve permanent normal trade relations with China. The hope and the expectation was that by allowing China into the World Trade Organization on a permanent basis, that it would become a country that would embrace the rule of law, that they would integrate into the world community, and that they would become more like the world community. And what we've seen is that exactly the opposite has happened. Human rights abuses, military expansionism, economic espionage, economic threats are what we've seen. So in the last 10 years, since 2010, 2011, we've seen Washington struggle with exactly how do we frame this threat from China and these other hostile actors. And as they struggle with that, because we know the system's broken, we don't have the protections in place to protect the country and keep us secure militarily, economically, and politically. And so Washington is working on a package of legislation to make these types of things more consistent and to provide a legal framework rather than a haphazard patchwork of rules, regulations, processes, and those types of things that go through the bureaucracy. But we need it not only to happen in Washington, we need it to happen here at the state level. And what Joe and I have seen as we've worked on the Goshen plant and the Ford cattle plant in Marshall, local governments also need to be interactive and be part of this process. And so, this is a great step forward to fix a broken system, a system that is broken at every level, federal, state, and local. And this will be a part of the package that will take time to develop. But the only thing that I can say, the sooner the better. It keeps us safer. It protects our economic assets. Michigan is committing almost $4 billion and a whole bunch of subsidies and tax deferments and infrastructure construction that really should never have taken place in the first place because of this real threat from the Chinese Communist Party. Saw it in Washington, saw the same kinds of threat. It's not only happening here in the U.S., it was happening in the Netherlands, it was happening in Europe. One quick story, the Netherlands, surprisingly to many, they're not only known for their great tulips, and they're not only known because of Amsterdam, they should be known because of their technology. There's a company in the Netherlands that makes the best chip manufacturing machines in the world, a primary target of the Chinese Communist Party. We work collaboratively to protect that technology and to keep the West safe. So, again, it's not only the U.S. that's facing this problem. Internationally, we're facing the same threat and responding to it. Joe?
Thank you, Pete. Representative Fink, thank you for your leadership and that of your colleagues. This is a pioneering moment that you're leading here. Never put forth in any state, I think, as the ascent in China has happened, has a comprehensive look at this from the state level taking place. So we'll be here to help you and your colleagues advance it. Ambassador Hoekstra spoke to it being a different time now, and it certainly is. The global dialogue on China has certainly changed. It's well underway with allies and partners within the United States, and it's certainly shifting to the state level. So by the genius of our founding fathers, the states are empowered to do much, and they have great latitude to oversee, regulate, look at rules, look at the way the state does business, and this package of legislation is doing exactly that. Due to geopolitical dynamics, things in Congress, as Ambassador Hoekstra knows well, don't always move as fast as they could, but states can move more nimbly. This is not a partisan issue. This is a bipartisan issue, and I hope members of the other side of the aisle link arms strongly with you and carry this ball forward. And this is an important pivot moment, not only for Michigan, but this will be an exemplar for the rest of the states. It'll be information, it will be explanations, it'll be education. To have people sharpen the focus on the nature of the PRC and the CCP, who they are, what they do, what they're about, the subnational incursions and influence operations that we're seeing in the state. We look no further than the cattle and Goshen projects in the state to see that and all the manifestations of how they operate. So with that, I'll close, and I will turn it over to Representative Green.
Thank you. Thank you. State Representative Green, and I am, my bill addresses the educational part of this. And we all have deep concerns about the influence of the Confucius Institutes and similarly groups that are allowed to have our college campuses throughout the United States. Funded by the Chinese government, these programs come with strings attached. They are not independent centers of learning, but rather instruments of the Chinese Communist Party's overseas propaganda machine. Notably, Wayne State University, Michigan State University, and the University of Michigan and Western Michigan University all maintain affiliations with organizations linked to Confucius Institutes. This situation prompts important inquiries regarding academic freedom and the potential for foreign influence in the education of our young individuals within the state. It is also crucial to note that 5 public schools in Michigan have past connections to Confucius classrooms in the Asia Society, which also has ties to the oppressive Chinese Communist government. This underscores the need for us to remain vigilant. As a veteran who fought against the oppressive ideologies of communism, I know firsthand the importance of safeguarding the principles that our great nation stands for: freedom, democracy, and the pursuit of knowledge without bias. I cannot stand by and allow repressive propaganda systems from dangerous foreign adversaries to infiltrate our educational institutions here at home and compromise our academic independence. Our legislation will ensure that public schools, colleges, and universities in Michigan do not accept grants that come with conditions that undermine our values and principles. We must protect the integrity of our education system and safeguard the minds of our future generations. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go through the bills, I think. But go ahead.
Okay. Representative Meerman's going to sum up the package quickly for us, then we're going to have a few minutes for questions after that.
Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity to be before you here with this bill package. My name is Luke Meerman. I serve the 89th District. This has not been a simple road for me to come to as far as we, the state legislature, being involved in this situation. But at the end of the day, we are here, as Ambassador Sella said, on behalf of our Michigan residents and the state of Michigan and our nation, to see that, things aren't being done here with our state dollars subverting our nation by a foreign entity. So really quick, Representative Andrew Fink has bills about installation with direct ties to foreign countries of concern that would prohibit that. But I want to point you to Article 7 of the cybersecurity law in 2017, which in my mind ties this all together, indicating that the Communist Party, again, the Communist Party, not the Chinese people themselves, but the Communist Party has all ability to take whatever information any company has here in the United States, and especially in the sense of technology, that it is then in the hands of the Communist Party to be used however they want, and every company in China has to comply with that. Representative Martin and Mark and then talk about foreign countries of concern and government contracts. So local and state, those two bills do that. And I want to point you to Huawei, which I'm sure you have seen, has been deemed the new technology from Huawei can't be used here in the United States. That's already been determined, and that was under the Biden administration just recently. Representative Martin has bills concerning contracts with these companies, and this is prohibiting purchasing of technology services. So we're talking about drones there, and we can go into some of the reports that come out from the Department of Defense in real concern about what these drones contain and what backdoors might be available there to be used against our state agencies, our local police departments, and our state police. Rep. Jamie Green talked about the education side. Rep. Will Brook has a bill in that as well on the higher education side of things. And then Rep. Bill Schuette, standing here to my left, has one about constraining agreements with foreign entities, and it requires public disclosure of money that is exchanged with these public entities or these foreign entities. And then Mike Holdley would prohibit the government bodies of our state from extending our economic incentives with foreign countries of concern. Again, back to this economic development money that we are using, these people, Michigan people's state tax dollars being used and thereby funneled directly into the Chinese Communist Party. And then finally, my bill has to do with land owned within a 20-mile radius of areas of concern, military bases, for instance, and land ownership in general of farmland of these foreign entities that Representative Fink listed off. So I think we're up for questions.
Yep. So we don't have a ton of time. We're sorry about that, but the schedule is what it is. If you have a particular question for a particular member, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll kind of figure it out amongst ourselves. And again, some of us will have a little bit of time maybe afterwards or later today. Not even you, Mr. Gergens?
I just have a question about Rep. Green's bill, education bill.
Sure.
Is it for K-12 schools and universities? Because there's Confucius Institutes and there's also the Confucius classrooms.
So the two bills are separate. So Representative Brooks addresses the higher ed, and mine addresses the under the 12th grade and below.
And does it have to do anything with teachers as well?
No, it has to do with funding and grants. So that's the main focus of it, is that they cannot accept money because money usually comes with strings attached, and that you would be using their influences, their curriculum, their tasks that are required with that funding. So it stops the grants from these entities listed on the board.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there, something as Rep. Green and I were discussing this stuff yesterday, I haven't gone through with a fine-tooth comb and really rethought through this, but certainly in the main, the actors being constrained by this legislation are essentially the Michigan government, parts of the Michigan government. So local governments, schools, universities, the state itself, not entering into contracts or not doing these subsidizations, that kind of thing. And so that's really who's being constrained here. And I would analogize it to the legislation adopted, I think, in 2005, but don't quote me on that. You can look it up. But the Iran Sanctions Act that the state already has. Contracts, the local government is directed to get a certification that their contractors are not Iran-linked entities under that legislation. So similar in terms of who is being constrained by the legislation. Any other questions?
Sorry, I was sort of pausing to try and figure out how best to word my question, but it seems like some portions of this legislation, specifically dealing with the land purchasing, is sort of in direct opposition to what Governor Whitmer has been sort of continuing to push in terms of investment. Why do you? I guess a two-part question. Have you started to have conversations with Democrats to see if there's portions of this that would be something they're considering? And I guess my follow-up to that is, why do you believe it's so important, and why do you believe that they should consider this alternative?
Yeah, the bill about land purchases is the bill that I have, and I do think it's in direct. It's different from where the governor is going with this, and I think the difference is that we see these countries of foreign concern that we've listed off already as using these land purchases in a very strategic way against this United States and we the people. So as state representatives, this is something that we can do of these 9 bills. They're all things that we as state representatives can do to help in a national security sense. And they're being strategic, I believe, the Chinese Communist Party, about where the land is that they're trying to purchase and wanting to purchase. And, just count the distance to where it is to sometimes universities and military installations as well. So did I answer the question, or you want to answer it a little different way?
I have one follow-up, but you did answer my question. Do you believe that these bills are more proactive and preventative, or do you think this is something that we're already actively seeing?
I definitely see it's happening now, and we're hoping to prevent more of it in the future.
Regarding your question about bipartisanship, go ahead, you take it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Excuse me. The part on bipartisan. The interesting thing is I take a look at my colleagues in Washington and also my experience that I had I was the ambassador. The concern about China and these other entities is bipartisan. So it's one of the issues that in Washington is bringing people together. There was a report that came out yesterday, I've only top-lined it, about the infiltration of Iran into influencing the Obama administration. That's not a partisan issue. That has Republicans and Democrats coming together and saying, how do we control this kind of undue influence within our government? The other thing is being part of the group in Big Rapids and in Marshall. I mean, the coalition is amazing. We had a meeting on Monday night, and we probably had 60 people there in a township, all right? And looking across that, there were I'm sure there were Republicans, Democrats, and independents. There were people there that were motivated because of their environmental perspective. There were people there because they didn't like what was happening to the community. There were others that were there that because they had the national security concerns. And so at the local level and at the federal level, it seems to be crossing a lot of different lines and ending up with some very interesting coalitions for change. And I expect that's what's going to happen here in Lansing. It may take a little longer. I don't know. These guys are the experts on that. But the most effective way to do this and the path that's being laid out locally and federally is to do this in a bipartisan basis. Okay? There's a lot of strong support to do this together, which you really have to do.
Further to the importance of bipartisanship, I mentioned earlier what's happening here, a pioneering moment. It's exemplary for other states to follow, but it is also really a reflection on the state level of what is happening in D.C. with the formation of the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party that was voted on January 10th through a supermajority vote of Republicans and Democrats to create the committee. And it's strongly led by Congressman Mike Gallagher, Republican of Wisconsin, and Democrat Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, who is from Chicagoland. They both see the threat. They both are engaged, actively working towards policy proposals that will ultimately counter what China is doing. And these fine legislators are doing here, doing that same fine model on the state level.
The only other thing I would add is that the farmland issue itself in Washington has also been bipartisan. I can't remember the vote, but it was
In the Senate, 97 to 1.
so 97 won in the Senate, and I think over 300, maybe over 400 Congress. Yeah, I think maybe not 400. Yeah, so a lot. The other thing I would just mention about like sort of who's here and why, it's certainly not intended to be a partisan issue. We have circulated these bills for co-sponsorship to the entire House. One thing I would just note, though, is that the members standing behind me, I think, do all have some kind of tie in their own previous careers to some of the issues that we're dealing with. In many cases, you're looking at veterans of the military, the farmland issue, Representative Meerman, his career in agriculture, Representative Thompson's career in healthcare relating to the keeping of health records. So I think you can maybe not look at us so much as a collection of Republicans, but of members of the House with certain experiences, which maybe put our antennas up a little bit. Any other questions? Did you have another one? That was a fake out? Representative Meerman, I think, is going to preview a little bit of kind of the ongoing work that we're hoping to do here with Representative Bruck.
And I'm going to kick it right over to Representative Will Brook.
Representative Will Brook from the 30th District, Monroe and Lenawee County. Yeah, it's a great meeting today. You know, national security is state security. State security is local security, and local security is individual security. So today we are announcing that we are going to establish a working group compact. This is going to be established in the Michigan legislature. It's going to be a bipartisan group to track, to evaluate, and publicize the threats of subnational incursions from threatening nations from around the world in order to protect the security of the state of Michigan. Our goals are twofold: to investigate and put forward policy stances and changes to both committees, chairs, as well as our executive branch in the state, and then to conduct public forums and briefings concerning this matter. So we look forward to working. This is going to be bipartisan. This isn't a partisan issue. Security is our future. So thank you very much.
Just to add one real quick thing, it's already been mentioned about the United States Select Committee on the Strategic Competition by Representative Sella. But I just wanted you to read you a quote right here over Raja Krishnamurthy and why this is his opening statement of this committee. Over the last 3 decades, both Democrats and Republicans underestimated the CCP and assumed that trade and investment would invariably lead to democracy and greater security in the Indo-Pacific region, including in the PRC. Instead, the opposite happened as China China's economy has grown more than tenfold since gaining access to the U.S. and world markets. The CCP has, among other things, strengthened its authoritarian control at home, including engaging in genocide of the Uyghur people. And the CCP has funded massive military buildup, threatening its neighbors, including Taiwan. And it has pursued economic and trade policies that flat out undermine the U.S. economy. So I just, again, wanted to reiterate the bipartisan nature of the threat that we see in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.